Well, Mario, I'd say we're doing pretty good in life. We beat Bowser and made the world a safer place for all of us. And you know what? I think you've earned a vacation.
I do deserve a vacation.
Well, hello there, and thank you for joining me for a Mario Wonder ranking list. Yay! When I was trying to decide what my ranking video for Mario Wonder should be, I was considering a lot of different options that I could rank. And while I may or may not come back and do another one, maybe a tier list, I decided in this case I wanted to focus on the different worlds because I really like the idea of trying to decide the best vacation spot for Mario inside this game. Mario deserves some time off, doesn't he? I mean, with all the adventuring and the enemy killing and the go-kart driving, he's got a lot on his plate. And, you know, I think now it's time for him to relax, take a break, have a nice vacation. And I'm not talking about one of those vacations where it actually turns out to just be work instead, like Mario Sunshine. No, I'm talking a full, honest-to-God, relaxing vacation. I think he's earned that.
No one has earned it more than me.
So I decided we were gonna create a little scenario in which Mario was invited back to the Flower Kingdom by Prince Florian and told he could stay in whatever world he'd like to stay in. Realistically, he'd probably stay in the palace with Prince, but it's neither here nor there. But like, where should he stay in the Flower Kingdom is the real question. That's the real crux, the meat and potatoes of this video. There are only 8 worlds in this game, so I thought the best way to do it would just be a straightforward ranking list where I go from the least to most desirable vacation spots for Mario. And I am going to try to keep it based on vacations for Mario as opposed to vacations for me, because I would probably have a slightly different set of criteria than Mario would have.
Oh, only slightly. Only slightly.
So I am going to try and put myself in Mario's hat and come up with a vacation that he would really love. So with that in mind, let's get started by discussing some of the elements that Mario would need for a good vacation. Vacations are super subjective. One person's dream vacation is another person's nightmare, and it is really hard to create an ideal vacation that isn't individualized. So I am just gonna try and set out a few key elements that Mario would be looking for in a good vacation, and I decided to focus on 4 of those elements that are varying levels of importance. So I think the most important element of a good vacation for Mario would be a variety of activities. Mario is a guy that does a lot of stuff, and I think he does need to be entertained a lot in order to enjoy himself. I don't think he's just the kind of like sit on the beach kind of guy. I do think he could do it for like the afternoon, but I just don't see him enjoying an entire vacation of doing nothing. So I do think he would need a variety of activities.
I'm so bored.
Furthermore, I firmly believe that Mario's ideal vacation would involve traveling with his friends and family. I just don't see him as a solo vacationer, especially because he has to do a lot of his work, his adventuring work, his princess saving work, and maybe his plumbing work too. I don't know. He has to do a lot of that alone, right? Sometimes he gets helpers and sometimes he gets friends that can come along, but a lot of his work is solo work, and I can imagine that would get lonely. So I would bet that he would want to invite people on his vacation so he could have a little bit of time with them. And when you invite a lot of differing personalities, you're gonna need a lot of various activities to keep them all entertained. The next important element would be the climate or the weather of that region. Of course, we know that Mario is used to every single climate, every type of weather known to mankind, but just because he's used to it doesn't mean he should have to put up with it while he's on vacation. I think the vast majority of people agree that not rainy weather is the most ideal, right? And especially for Mario, considering he has been exposed to every type of climate, every type of weather known to mankind, I think it only makes sense that he would want to not deal with that as much as possible. He shouldn't have to fight anything, and that includes the weather.
I'm on vacation.
Next up, we have safety. I literally just said that Mario shouldn't have to fight anything on vacation. That remains true. So if he shouldn't have to fight the weather, then I think it's safe to say that he shouldn't have to fight any environmental dangers as well. I do want to say that for the sake of this list, we're going to pretend that the enemies aren't so enemy-y. Like in any region he goes, there are going to be wild animals and creatures like that, and so we're going to pretend that the enemies that are in the levels are just the creatures of that land.
Nature is amazing.
And the 4th element that Mario would consider, I think, is probably the least important element, but I still think he would consider it, and that's the aesthetic of the region. Is it pretty? Is it nice? Does it have a good view? I don't think the answers to these questions are as important as the other 3 elements that I mentioned, but I do think it's a good thing to consider. If the region is pretty, it's a bonus. It's gravy.
Gravy.
So those were the 4 elements of good vacation that I considered going into this list. And before we get started, I just want to make one final note, and that is I won't be discussing a lot of the elements of the levels within the worlds, right? I'm only going to be discussing really the base worlds themselves. We're just pretending that Mario set up camp somewhere outside of these levels, where the enemies can't get to him, because he's on vacation and he shouldn't have to fight things. So we're just considering the non-dangerous things that region may offer. So now that we got all of that out of the way, we can finally get started with the ranking, and we're gonna start with the Mario Wonder World that would be the least appealing for Mario to go on vacation to. First up, we have Deep Magma Bog. If there are 2 kinds of locations that I think are very unlikely to appeal to vacationers, it would be inside of an active volcano and in a bog. And so combining those 2 things would make it an incredibly unappealing vacation spot.
It's so damn hot. Milk was a bad choice.
For one thing, there seems to only be 2 activities available in this world, and those are not getting lost and not burning to death. And Mario can do that at home. There's a reason that only Poplin researchers venture into this bog. It's because it's dangerous, and it's because no one else wants to go there. Furthermore, it's not only going to be swelteringly hot at all times, but it's also going to be extremely dangerous, because there are just open pools of magma everywhere, just waiting for you to fall in at any time. Look at these pathways. You run a little too fast, you have someone bump into you a little too hard, and you're going right over that edge. You're done for. While the aesthetic of the world is definitely unique and interesting, that is not enough of a benefit for this world to have it outweigh the rest of the downsides that come with this area. It is just too dangerous, too hot, and there's just not enough to do. Following the Deep Magma Bog would be a step up for pretty much any location, and that is the case with the Fungi Mines, but it's not like a huge step up. Admittedly, there is a way smaller chance of burning alive in the Fungi Mines than there is in Deep Magma Bog, but there are other dangers there instead, like cave-ins, and rock falls, and getting horribly lost, as some Poplins did.
I have no idea where I am.
And the thing about these mines is that they're mines, like active working mines. We have Poplins that are down there mining. And it just seems really weird to take a vacation in a mine. It's a mine, people. And also, not only that, it feels like an OSHA violation. Like, that is definitely not safe. What, are you gonna wear PPE when you go there? No, you're not, okay? No one wants to wear PPE to go on vacation. It doesn't only seem rude to intrude upon these Poplin workplaces, it just also seems incredibly unsafe and very stupid. And on top of all of that, it seems like the weather down there would be horribly unpleasant. Considering these are the Fungi Mines, I think it's pretty safe to say that it's probably pretty damp down there. I mean, fungi likes to grow in damp, cool places, so you know it's gonna be damp and cool down there. So it's gonna be humid, but kinda cold. A little bit, like a little, that sounds awful.
I'm so wet and cold and miserable right now.
There's also just some weird perpetual fog that seems to just constantly hang over the entire area. All in all, it does not make a very pleasant vacation. Those are not conditions that I would want to vacation in. I mean, if nothing else, it's probably one of the ugliest locations that you could choose to vacation in. I will admit the mushrooms everywhere are kind of cool, but they're also kinda ugly. I think we we can all agree that pretty much anywhere is better than vacationing in an active volcano or a working mine, but I can't imagine the desert is, like, all that much of an improvement. I know that there are real people who actually go to the desert to vacation, but that's not like a huge number of people. That's a pretty minority group of people, and I don't think Mario is in that group. I think Mario goes to enough deserts in his professional life that he wouldn't choose to go to a desert in his personal life.
I get enough of that at work.
Now, admittedly, the Sunbaked Desert does have that giant palace, which is pretty damn cool. It's very cool to look at. It's also very pretty. It adds to the aesthetic of the region so much. And on top of that, if you're a history buff, I bet you they'd probably offer a couple good tours. So, you know, they've got a few activities for the nerds, the nerd activities. And if you don't like all that nerd crap, then, well, you can go and do some dune buggying or whatever. There's some sand dunes you can do, and you can go sunbathing or whatever. The world is your oyster as long as it's desert themed. But I mean, if you think about it, that is really all the area has to offer. And on top of that, it's boiling hot all the time. There's almost no water. And I just don't think that would make it land very high on Mario's list.
I'm hot and I'm bored.
Sure, you don't have the risk of OSHA violation related deaths or burning in a pit of magma, but you do have the dangers of melanoma and heat stroke. Those aren't nothing. I just don't find the Sunbaked Desert to be an all too appealing place to go vacationing, especially when there are other locations that offer similar things in terms of like desert experience, but with less heat and more water. Now, the special world is a unique place because there really isn't a lot to it. It's just the different paths leading up to that central platform, and then the central platform itself, and that's about it.
That's about it.
There's just not a lot to it, and there's just not a lot that can be done there. But that being said, the reason it's so high on this list, the reason it's number 5 instead of number 8, is because it has a unique function to it that only one other world in this game has, and that is access to all the other worlds. Right? Only the Petal Isles can access every other world without having to go somewhere else first. And that means that the special world can offer things like day trips to other lands. That in itself offers more activity than the Magma Bog or the Fungi Mines. That in and of itself, I think, is appealing enough to put it higher on this list. Now, that being said, it's not higher on this list because it does lack so much to do outside of that, right? It really is only appealing because you can go other places.
Frankly, I don't have much to offer.
But you do have to admit that there is a pretty spectacular view up there. If you don't have much else to do, you do have the ability to look out over the rest of the game because this is the highest location in the game. And so that offers you a pretty fantastic view of the lands of the Flower Kingdom. But with that height being the highest area in the game, it also comes with the risk of falling death. That is some of the danger of this world. It's a little bit dangerous. It's not as dangerous as other worlds, but there is a little bit of risk of a falling death. Now, that being said, they do have these nice thick walls that offer a good amount of fall protection for about 50% of the platform. So, it's, you know.
I don't, actually.
Plateau is a really weird location for me. It's weird in that it is probably the most basic of all of the locations. I don't know how else to explain it, but there is just something so basic. I think what I mean by that is it has the most Mario of all the worlds. It makes me think of Mario games when I go into it, which makes sense. What I mean is I just think it feels very similar to worlds that I've played in other games, and I think Mario would feel kind of the same way about it. I think he would find this world to be too familiar for him to want to vacation there, really. I don't think it would be the worst place for him to go, but I also don't think he would find it all that interesting.
You're basic.
I think there are other worlds that are more unique to the Flower Kingdom that would be more appealing to him. Now that being said, this area probably does have the second most diverse of the environment types. There are mountains and woodsy areas and fields and a sandy desert area and just a whole bunch of stuff. And so that does guarantee that it has a lot of different appeal, right? If Mario is bringing a large group of people, they can split up and each go to a different section of Pipe Rock Plateau if they would choose, if they want to do that. It's a great way to get a lot of various kinds of activities planned on the vacation without actually having to go to different places to do it. Like I said, when I was talking about the Sunbaked Desert, there are little areas where you could probably do some sand activities, like in Pipe Rock Plateau. Now this looks more to be like dirt than sand, but I think we could make it work. You build a dirt castle, it's fine.
It's not.
And also, since this is the first world we enter, it always feels like the safest, right? It feels just like the most familiar, the safest. It feels like a little cocoon, a little baby blanket, and so it is nice to know that that is probably the safest location, or at least one of them. The most dangerous area seems to be the mountain, although it's probably more of a hill than a mountain considering we have Shining Falls and Fluff Puff Peaks to compare it to. But still, it's high enough, you could fall from it, that could be dangerous, but at the same time, it is pretty easy to avoid climbing it. It's not like on Fluff Puff Peaks where that is the location, is the mountain, right? This way, you could choose to not climb it, and then you're safe from falling off of it.
That's how it works.
And I do just have to throw this in there as well. I didn't mention it until now, but the weather in Pipe Rock Plateau seems to be solid. It seems to have perpetual blue skies, and you can't go wrong with that when it comes to a vacation spot. If Shining Falls were real, like existed in the real world, it would be one of those places that people told you to go to before you died. It would be a bucket list location for so many people. It seems to be constantly bathed in the soft light of perpetual sundown as water cascades over cliffs like molten gold.
That was beautiful.
It's just gorgeous there. When I was discussing the elements of the good vacation for Mario, I did say that aesthetic probably wasn't very important to him or as important as the other three, but I think the aesthetic in Shining Falls would be a huge bonus. It is a very unique location, and I think it is one of those places where you wouldn't see it in many other places, and I think that's really cool. It's such a unique place that I think that in and of itself is enough of a reason to go there for a vacation. And on top of all of that, it has water for people who like to do water activities. It's got a mountain because the Shining Falls is just a series of waterfalls that it has to fall from somewhere, so it's got a mountain that you can do mountain activities on if you want, and you know, it's got a lot of waterfalls, so you can jump off of waterfalls. That's fucking fun. It's got shit going on over there.
There's so much to do here.
Now, of course, I've mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. If you're gonna go somewhere that's high up, you're gonna risk falling death. So that is part of the safety of the area, is you're gonna risk falling to your death. That is true of like 50% of these locations, so it's not really taking away that much. Additionally, I will admit there is a risk of drowning. Anywhere where there is even a small amount of water, you can drown. I'm not even kidding. This is a tangent, but I'm not even kidding. And that's true for children. That's especially true for toddlers, but that is true of every human being. If the water is deep enough where it is able to cover your mouth and your nostrils, you are able to drown in it. I remember hearing a story, now where did I hear it? I could not tell you, but I remember hearing it, about a guy who was drunk and he passed out drunk and fell face first into a puddle, and he drowned in the puddle because he was too unconscious to roll over and not be in the puddle anymore. So literally any location with water is going to come with the risk of drowning. But as long as you're careful and you have someone there who's like a designated lifeguard, you have some people who know CPR, you're all gonna be fine. Mario's bringing his crew, they're all gonna keep an eye on each other, they're gonna use the buddy system, it's all gonna work out. Fluff Puff Peaks is a lot like Shining Falls in that it's very pretty. It has such a nice aesthetic to it. It's the complete opposite aesthetic, where Shining Falls was deep, rich jewel tones. Fluff Puff Peaks is pastels, light colors. It's very pretty though. They basically took the pink, purple, and blue clouds that you get during sundown and built a world inside of it. That's so pretty. That's gorgeous, yo. Now I do have to note, it's a mountain. It's a mountain, so it's cold on the mountain. But you have to acknowledge, with a cold, snowy mountain comes the availability of winter sports.
Guten Tag! I'm going skiing!
The availability of winter sports would be ample. There would be skiing and snowboarding and sledding and drinking hot cocoa by the fire. And of course you have mountain climbing. There's a whole slew of activities that you could do on this mountain. And to top it all off, if you so choose to venture up the mountain to the very tippity top, you are rewarded. How? With a yodeling performance by the yodeling poplins themselves. Hot damn! No other world has yodeling. Period.
That was fucking magic.
That felt smooth. That felt really smooth.
So in the pocket.
A chance to yodel with the poplins of Fluff Puff Peaks is one of those things that people brag about. Like, again, if this was a real life thing, there would be that one person at the party that would be like, yeah, I yodeled with the poplins of Fluff Puff Peaks. I can only describe it as a transcendental experience. And you know what? I don't even think I'd blame them. As someone who has yodeled with the poplins, it was a transcendental experience. Now, of course, Fluff Puff Peaks does come with some risks. It basically has all the same risks as Shining Falls, except you replace the dangers of drowning with the dangers of hypothermia instead. 6 one, half done the other. Not at all. That's not even remotely true, but that's okay. And we know Mario is more than capable of going very long times without much covering and being okay. So I don't think he's too much in danger of developing hypothermia. I think he'll be fine.
He's fine.
Last but not least, I am sorry if you saw this coming from a mile away. I feel like it's the obvious answer, I really do. But the Petal Isles just seems like it would be the best vacation spot. I wish I could come up with a less obvious choice, but it just seems so obvious to me. This is the closest place in the Flower Kingdom we have to a tropical area. Not only is it like the special world in that it has access to all of the other worlds without having to go anywhere else in between, but also it has a variety of different ocean activities and tropical sports that you can do. Snorkeling, scuba diving, swimming, wakeboarding, surfing, so many more that I can't think of off the top of my head. There's just a never-ending list of things that people can do in a tropical location. And even if you don't want to do something sporty, the tropical location offers just sitting by the beach and listening to the water, or floating in the ocean, or just like sunbathing, you know? You can go at whatever pace you want. There's a reason so many people flock to the beach. It's 'cause it's nice there.
The beach. So much to do. Unlimited possibilities. There is nothing to do at the beach. Why did we come here?
There are enough activities at enough different difficulty levels to appeal to every single person that you could take. And if they don't like it there, they can go to a different world very easily, because they're in the Petal Isles. It's the best of every option. Of course, just like going to the beach in real life, the constant sun means that there is a risk of heat stroke and melanoma, just like in the Sunbaked Desert as well. But proper hydration and sunscreen will really take most of the danger out of that. And heat stroke is probably far less likely when you have the option of jumping into the water to cool off whenever you feel like you're getting overheated. That's not really available in the desert except for that one little oasis pool. This is presuming, by the way, that palace water that they have in the Sunbaked Desert isn't for swimming. I think that's for drinking. That seems like it's for water for consumption, not for playing in.
Are you sure this water's sanitary? It looks questionable to me.
So I do think that the risk of heat stroke is way less in the Petal Isles. And on top of that, there aren't any hills or mountains or anything, so the fall risk is basically zero. Unless you get too drunk on tropical drinks, yo. On top of all of that, since I'm setting this hypothetical vacation after the events of the game, after I've already defeated Bowser, that means instead of having a giant Bowser head that you're looking at, you have this lovely little star-shaped bay. That sounds just so nice. But honestly, even if you were gonna go to the Petal Isles for a vacation before you defeated Bowser, the giant Bowser head is kind of a cool view. You have to admit, it's different, if nothing else.
Wow, that's an interesting view.
I think it really does just have the largest number of things to offer for Mario and the most of his friends. I mean, Peach and the Toads did seem pretty psyched for their tropical vacation in Mario Sunshine, so I think that does tell us that the tropical theme is something that appeals to them. So that's it, folks. I definitely think that Mario would choose the Petal Isles if he was gonna go on a Flower Kingdom vacation. That's just where I've landed on that. While I do think that each world has something unique to offer, I also think that a lot of those unique things can take away from the quality of the vacation. Like, yeah, it is pretty unique that there's magma everywhere, but that's actually not a good thing. It's not an appealing thing to have that on the vacation.
Help! Please help me!
Willie, please. Mr. Van Houten has the floor.
All in all, I think a relaxing trip to the seaside with the option to go anywhere else that you want is probably the best choice Mario could make. Let me know if you think I'm wrong and why you think I'm wrong. Tell me where you think Mario would prefer to go. I'm definitely interested to hear what your thoughts are on that. I have no idea if I will be back with another Mario Wonder video. I'm still very up in the air about that, but come back and find out. And until then, if you made it this far, thank you so much for joining me today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. If you liked this video, hit that like button. If you hated this video, hit that dislike button. And either way, hit subscribe. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.